Hi everybody, I'm Jane Martin. I'm a respiratory therapist and I'm the Assistant Director of Education for the COPD Foundation. I'm here today to talk with you a little bit about some helpful breathing techniques. They're pursed lips breathing and diaphragmatic breathing. But before we start on that, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the lungs and explain why these breathing techniques help. When you have COPD, sometimes your bronchial airways, the tubes inside your lungs that carry the air, become weak and a little bit loose, like the walls are kind of floppy and they don't hold up like they used to. When this happens, sometimes when you're breathing out, the walls of those airways can collapse, leaving stale air stuck in your airways and in your lungs. And then you can't get that air out. So what do? What helps us to get the air out is to put some back pressure on the inside of that airway. So how do we do that? We do that with pursed lips breathing by putting a little bit of resistance and blowing against a little bit of resistance, and then that keeps that airway open longer so you can get rid of more of your stale air. Before you start on pursed lips breathing, remember to talk with your doctor before ever starting a new activity or exercise or breathing technique. Okay. Before we start pursed lip breathing, I want to remind you to relax your shoulders. Sometimes people with COPD can get really tense up here and their shoulders are way up here and they're breathing really hard. So we can't do these breathing techniques correctly without the shoulders relaxed. So just sit up nice and straight, but with your back supported, and keep your shoulders down. With pursed lips breathing, you're going to breathe in through your nose for 2 counts and out through pursed lips like you're whistling or you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake. You're going to breathe out twice as long as you breathed in. So for a count of about 4. So let's give that a try. Here's how it goes. I'm going to breathe in for 2 counts and out for 4 counts. In through my nose, out through my pursed lips. And that feels really good to blow the air out slowly instead of huffing and puffing. You might be used to breathing fast and kind of gulping for air. This really helps slow that down and really keeps you getting more air in and out and kind of keeps you calmer too. So let's do that again. Breathe in on 2 and out. In 2, out 2, 3, 4. If you practice this and do it, I think you'll find that it really does help slow your breathing down, keeps you calmer, and helps you get through your daily tasks a little bit better instead of letting your breath get away from you and huffing and puffing. This helps you keep control of your breathing. Now let's talk about diaphragmatic breathing. Now this one's a little bit trickier. It's harder to do than pursed lips breathing. Your diaphragm is a large sheet of muscle in between your chest, where your lungs and heart are up here, and your abdomen. And that's where your stomach and your intestines and your liver and everything are down there. Your diaphragm is usually in the shape of a dome, like this. When you breathe in, it comes down, it pulls on the bottoms of your lungs, and the air flows through pretty easily without you even thinking about it. Sometimes when you have COPD, the diaphragm gets flatter. The lungs actually expand and get bigger because they're kind of loose and floppy sometimes. And so if your diaphragm doesn't have that nice dome shape and just has a little bit of movement from dome to flat, you don't have as much mechanical advantage of moving those lungs like you did. And that's what can also make it hard to breathe. Now the good news is that your diaphragm is a muscle, and a muscle can be exercised. When you have COPD and all that wonderful intricate stuff in your lungs that makes them breathe so well, that's tissue. And tissue, when it gets damaged, it doesn't really spring back to what it once was. It just kind of stays that same way. As opposed to a muscle, you can strengthen. So let's work on getting that big main muscle of breathing, your diaphragm, back into shape a little bit. So when you breathe in, if your diaphragm comes down, what's going to happen? That means your belly is going to come out. So instead of using your chest and all of this up here, you're going to use your diaphragm, and your chest is going to stay more still and your stomach's going to come out. We want to avoid the use of all these accessory muscles. And what's an accessory? An accessory is something extra. So let's see, you've got your clothing, you've got your slacks, you've got your top, you've got your dress, and that's kind of your main clothing. And then you have accessories. You might have jewelry or a watch or a wallet or your purse, and those are extras that don't act as clothing. Well, your accessory muscles are kind of the same. They're extra muscles. They do some help with your breathing, but they were not meant to do all the work of breathing. When you have COPD sometimes and you're not using your diaphragm, you call on all those accessory muscles and you end up working too hard to breathe. You're breathing like working your shoulders, working the muscles in your neck and back here, and even those intercostal muscles in between your ribs are working really hard to help your lungs move that air in and out. And so let's get back to trying to use that diaphragm as much as possible, keeping your chest relaxed, letting your diaphragm do most of the work. So if you put one hand up here and one hand down on your belly, you want this hand that's down here to move more when you breathe in. This is kind of a hard concept to get because we're so used to thinking of the chest breathing. So we're going to breathe in again through your nose, like with the pursed lips breathing, and blow out. And it's okay to give that just a very slight pressure, little push to help you feel that your belly going in can push that air out, push on the bottom of that diaphragm, and expel that stale air. Let's try that again. When you breathe in, your hand down here should move more than your hand up here on your chest. That really feels good. And in again. And blow it out. And if at any time when you're practicing diaphragmatic breathing, if you feel tired or your muscles start to hurt or you're kind of mixed up and you don't know if you're doing it right or not, just stop. Give yourself a rest. It's not time to be doing it right then. And then try it again later if you feel up to it. The best way to practice diaphragmatic breathing at home when we're not here talking like this and I'm sitting in a chair is to lay back nice and comfortable, and that way you can see better when your belly raises up. It's an easier way to see that and to feel if you're doing your diaphragmatic breathing. If you want to, another way that makes it easy to see if you're doing it right is to put a box of tissues on your stomach, and when you breathe in, if that box of tissues raises up, you're doing something right. If you're really ambitious and you want to do with something else, you can get a bag of beans or a small bag of rice, like 8 ounce, 10 ounces at the grocery store. Put it on your belly and work your diaphragm with your diaphragmatic breathing. And you know what you're actually doing? You're actually having that muscle lift weights, because you're working against some resistance, a little bit of weight on there, and maybe you can bring that breathing muscle back into shape a little bit to help your breathing.